coming to kick off tonight. We are starting a new series called Worth It. And when I think about the phrase worth it, I think about it kind of like humorously. I think about someone like doing something like stupid, but like they know it's going to be funny, and so it's worth it, right? Like, I don't know. I was trying to think earlier today, like what's something I like running to first base in that game out there where like you just know you're gonna get obliterated, and like some of you didn't even care if you were out or not 5 minutes ago. You're still running to first base so you could get knocked on your back, and you're like, that's worth it, right? That was worth it. Or like if you've ever like streaked in the snow, like that's. Am I the only one? Well, I thought it was worth it. It's actually not worth it at all, just so you FYI, a friend told me. But are we okay? Like that you've never actually like been in a hot tub in like the snow and you're like, I'm gonna actually like not even streak. Sorry, forgive me for the imagery that you just received. But like you just get out and you like run in the snow. That's what I meant. Did I get you with the streak part? I meant like running, but like with your suit on. But okay, but you might think worth it. Okay, just when you do it, you can thank me later. Okay, but in all seriousness, worth it. I think that there's things in life that we do it and we know it's going to cause us pain, and we know there's going to be temporary suffering, but we think the goal's worthwhile. So like you train for sports, right? In the off season, you're doing all this rigorous stuff. You're like throwing up, running sprints or whatever, right? And you're like, worth it, right? And you're like, it's so worth it because it's going to make such a difference, you hope, in the upcoming season. Or you study like a maniac, right? And you hope that all your work and all of your hours and all of that is worth it because you get a high grade, right? It's worth the results. So, the letter that we're looking at in this series, it's in the Bible. It's called 1 Peter. And the letter 1 Peter was written by a real person to real people in a real situation. So just in case there's some of you who think, because I used to think this, that the Bible was written by some old dude who like Nintendo wasn't invented yet. And so he just sat down and was like, and just wrote forever, right? That's not how the Bible was created. Instead, it was written by a real person to real people in a real situation. And the person, Peter, in the letter 1 Peter, he's writing to people who are experiencing pain and suffering. And here's why. You might have learned this in history, or you might have been like me, and you didn't learn anything in history. So you can thank me later. In fact, history class is the only class, one of two, that I got kicked out of growing up. I was playing with my pencil, and I lost control. I was like flicking it. I lost control and went end over end, and it hit Miss DeMoose in the face. And at that point, she had it with me and said, Chad, leave the room now. And so I didn't learn a lot in history, but here's I catch you up here tonight. There's this place called Rome. Everyone heard of Rome? It's a pretty big deal, okay? All right? And at this time of the writing of this letter, a little before that, there was this crazy like dude named Nero, all right? Nero was insane. And what he did is he wanted to build up Rome. He wanted to have new shiny buildings, right? Nero Tower or whatever. And he wanted to build it up. So you know what he did? It's brilliant. He burned it all down. He wanted to build it up. So he's like, well, first I have to remove stuff, so I'm just going to burn it down. Well, the people who lived in Rome didn't think that was a very good idea. So he received a lot of pushback, okay? It backfired on him, all right? It didn't work out at all, okay? And so this is what he does. Nero sees his plan go bad, and what he does out of his fear, he blames a group of people, saying they're the ones who had the idea, they're the ones, and he blames Christians. Nero blames Christians for the burning of Rome, that they're the ones lighting the city on fire, right? But people already in Rome, they didn't like Christians because Christians believed in Jesus, all right? And it was different than what the Roman people believed in, and they already had, so it was easy for them to kind of buy into the lie that, yeah, the Christians did it, right? So what do you think happened to the Christians? Any guesses? And what? they died in jail, and yeah, they ran. I mean, they were heavily persecuted. So like Sonic the Hedgehog, if you know who that is, like their legs just activated, like they just got out of there, right? They were being persecuted and running, in all seriousness, running for their lives. So Peter, though, he writes this letter, and he's basically saying, hey guys, even though you're experiencing such persecution is the word we use, like even though people are attacking you for your faith, that you are leaving your family, your jobs, everything that you know, because people are trying to kill you for they think that you did something that you didn't even do. Following Jesus is still worth it. That's why he writes this letter. He's like, it's worth it. Following Jesus is worth it, even despite the pain and the hardship that you're experiencing. Now, every single one of us, like, just raise your hand if you've experienced something like really hard in your life. Here's the deal. You're either in something really hard right now, or like you just came out of something hard, or you're about to go into like a hard time right now. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm just telling you, like, life is awesome. Like, life is great. For most of us, like, we'd probably say, like, no, life is overall pretty good, but life is filled with hard times, right? Like, it's filled with tough times. It's filled with trials and all that stuff. And when you go through something hard, all of us in some way or another, we have like some hope that we rely on. So like if you're dealing with like tension in your family, like your parents aren't getting along, well you hope that it gets better. And here's what hope means. Hope is to expect or want something to happen. Hope is to expect or desire something to happen. That's hope. To expect or to desire something to happen. So your parents are fighting. You expect, or you desire at least, for them to stop fighting and start, right, being kind to one another. Your parents maybe are divorced, and you expect them, or you at least desire them to stop fighting and start being civil toward one another, right? A friend betrays you at school. You're back at school. How was that, by the way? How's school going? Pretty good? Okay, good. Better response than the hot tub streaking thing, so that's good. Yeah, so you're at school and friends and all that stuff, and like say like your friend betrays you, like she or he like is with another group of people, and you desire that like your friend comes back and repents and says sorry and starts being your friend again, or you just replace them really quick, right? That's your hope. But like when we have hard things happen in our life, we rely on some kind of hope. And hope is to expect or desire something to happen. But here's what's normal. What's normal is for our hope to be like tied up in circumstances. Like what's normal is for our hope to be tied up in like, I hope my circumstances get better. This bad thing is happening, and I desire that it gets resolved. That's so normal. And tonight, I just want to tell you a couple things that's unique about Jesus when it comes to encountering hard things in our life, all right? And the very first thing is this. Jesus is our living hope. Jesus is our living hope. And here, we pull up the verse here, Morgan. This is, or Maddie, I can't see you, whoever's up there. I trust you, though. But if you pull up the next verse. God has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade. This inheritance is kept in heaven for you. And you can leave that verse up there, please. Again, what's so normal is for us to have hope in our circumstances. I hope things will get better. I hope that my situation, that friend that betrayed me, I hope he or she will realize that they're stupid, and then they'll come back and be my friend. I hope that this season and like that I can play more than what it seems that I'm going to be playing this season. I hope I have a good year. I desire that, again, my parents or starts getting along, or my sibling just maybe disappears for a month, or like I desire that my circumstances get better, or maybe like even like you're at school, right? So you desire that guy or that gal will just one day soon, maybe early next week, if the Lord's hearing your prayer, will just turn around slowly and say, I've been thinking about you all summer. I want you to know I love you. Like, that's what you're hoping for. That's your desire. If you could have anything else, that's your desire. But that is so normal, all right? It's so normal. All of us desire our circumstances to get better. But here's what's unique about Jesus. Jesus is called our living hope. Jesus is called our living hope, and the hope that's in Jesus isn't tied to circumstances. If you're here tonight and you've never been to church, or haven't been to church in a long time, and you're already kind of lost on this whole Jesus is your living hope, or my living hope, or whoever's living hope thing, like, first of all, there's no place I'd rather you be than here tonight. So I'm so glad that you're here. But here's what I want to try to explain tonight. The hope from Jesus isn't like just a virtue. It's not just like a characteristic. But hope from Jesus is Jesus. You see, followers of Jesus, we have hope in Jesus that's not tied to circumstances. It's tied to what Jesus has actually already done for us, is promising to do in us right now, and has promised to continue into the future. So real basic. Some of you might think, even if you grew up in a Christian home, you might think that like being a Christian or a follower of Jesus is about like you try to stay away from the naughty things, right? Like don't say the F word, right? And listen to Christian music as long as you can handle it. And don't watch really naughty movies. Avoid the party scene. Like, so if you just avoid the bad stuff and you do the good stuff, right, that's kind of like being a Christian. You're just committing to like, I will be good for the rest of my life, so help me God. Like, that's what you think being a Christian is. Maybe even if you aren't a Christian, you might think that's what it is. No, not a thing. I hope you keep doing good things and staying away from bad things. But that's not, being a follower of Jesus, this is what it's actually based upon. It's actually based upon a belief of something that happened in history. Something that happened in history. We believe, as followers of Jesus, 2,000 years ago, there's a guy named Jesus. And what he did is he came and he died on the cross, and he took on the punishment of God that we deserve for our sin, so that you and I would never have to be scared of being punished by God for our sin. That's what Jesus did. And then it looked like Jesus, who's God, he claimed to be God, he died, and it looked like his whole plan kind of went down the toilet, because it looked like sin and death killed him, because he was murdered. But sin and death they didn't kill him. Instead, for 3 days, he was killing sin and death. And then he came back up from the dead, right? And the reason that matters is because, one, he said that he was God, and now that proves that what he was saying was true. He was God. And two, it means that everything else he said was true. And here's some of the things that Jesus did. I'm just going to give you the Spark Notes version here. You still rely on Spark Notes? I didn't, all right? And so here's what Jesus said. Jesus said that, like, one, he loves you and me. Two, that he died on the cross for you and I, so that we would never have to be scared of receiving punishment for our sin if we would put our faith in him. He said that by his Spirit, called the Holy Spirit, that he would come inside you and me, and he would change you and me, that he would walk with us through every situation in life, and that, listen, when we die, we don't have to be scared, because we'll be with Jesus forever, all right? It'll be perfect, no stress, no acne, no worry, right? No smelly armpits, like no sin, no shame, no really annoying people on Instagram, like making stupid comments, none of that stuff. It's a place of perfection, and that's the promises of Jesus. So, Jesus is our hope, and Jesus is alive. And that's why Jesus is our living hope. Hope is not like just a characteristic. It's not just a virtue. Hope is a person, and his name is Jesus. He's our hope. So our hope isn't just tied into circumstances. Our hope is actually attached to the promises of Jesus. What he's already done for us, what he's promising to do in us, and what he has in store for us. And that's why this verse says, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade. The things that Jesus has promised us, nothing can take away from those things. His promises never expire. So here's the deal. I'm like anyone else. Like, I have desires for my circumstances to get better too. I do. Like, to be real with you. I have desires. I have desires to win every argument that I'm in. I have desires to make more money or whatever. I have desires for my sports teams to win. I just choose the really bad ones. But I I have desires just like anyone else, like normal earthly desires for my circumstances to get better. I hope that relationships in my life get better. I just like you desire for things in my life to get better, circumstances to get better. But here's the thing. Even when those circumstances don't get better, when Jesus is our living hope, our hope doesn't go away when those circumstances don't get better. Because I think you would agree with me, in life, there's plenty of times where our circumstances get better, right? There's plenty of times where that person you like actually does like you. There's plenty of times where that person follows you back, and you're like, oh, that's nice. There's plenty of times where you actually get to go on that vacation, or your mom says, fine, you can go away for the weekend, all right? There's plenty of times where circumstances work for you, but how many of you would agree there's plenty of times they don't, right? Yeah, you're like, no, man, stuff hits the fan. Yes, it does. And when Jesus is your living hope, your hope isn't just dependent on your desire for things to get better, for something to happen. Instead, your greatest desire is actually to experience the promises of Jesus. Your hope is tied into Jesus. If you're thinking tonight, like, that just sounds crazy, it is, and it requires a little bit of faith. That's this whole thing. So here's the deal. What's unique about the hope that Jesus offers us is that it's living hope. He is living hope. It's not just tied into circumstances. But here's the second thing that's really unique about Jesus that he offers us. It's called eternal perspective. It's kind of like a big phrase, but eternal perspective. Not only is he our living hope, and he's greater than circumstances, but two, he offers us eternal perspective. If we can go to the next verse, it says this. The next verse is, oh, there we go. In all this, you greatly rejoice. What's that talking about? It's talking about the promises of Jesus, that he loves you, he died for you, right? He took on sin and God's punishment for sin so that you would never have to be scared of experiencing if you put your faith in him, right? That he lives in you, that there's a place in heaven for you. Like, on all this, you greatly rejoice. You're so happy. All of you look so happy, just like perfect. Though now for a little while, you may have to had suffer grief in all kinds of trials. Listen, Peter, real talk, bro. Real talk from Peter. Peter is not some dude. Do you know, you have people in your life who are so optimistic they drive you crazy? Are you that person? Right? Some of you are that person. Like, I love having you in my life. You help offset me a little bit, right? I mean, upset me and offset me. Like, you balance me, all right? But like Peter's not just a guy who's like so optimistic that he's like lacks reality, you know? He's like, listen, on all these promises of Jesus, that Jesus is our living hope. Say you're here tonight, you're like, okay, Jesus is my living hope. Great. But what about when stuff hits the fan? Well, here's what Peter says. Though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. I love that phrase, all kinds of trials. The reason I love it is because all of us experience all kinds of trials. Your trials may not be my trials, right? Like the person next to you, their trials may not be your trials. So your trial, listen up, your trial might be in your home. Your trial might be like mom and dad just like seem to hate each other right now. That might be your trial. Maybe your family's fine. School just sucks for you. You're getting obliterated and it's like the first day or something, right? Like maybe that's your trial. Maybe your trial is that you just got dumped and it hurts, right? Maybe your trial is that you can't level up in your video game. I don't know. Like, whatever. We have all kinds of trials. We don't have to compare. The thing is, like, if you think about it, we all have like different trials, like, and we all go through them at different times, right? We just have all kinds of problems, right? And Peter says, listen, you can have joy, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of these problems. But here's the phrase he uses. He uses this phrase, though now for a little while. Okay, that's funny. Because when you're going through a hard time in life, does it seem like a little while or a long freaking while? Right? It doesn't seem like a little while. When you're going through all kinds of trials, I have not experienced a trial in my life where I'm like, that was really fast. Right? I'm like, dear Lord, when will this be over? Right? Like that's more of like what I experience emotionally, not like, oh, that was fast. No, but here's the thing that Jesus offers. And it's this thing called eternal perspective. Okay, so I'm going to take this thing out. I was looking for a rope. I couldn't find one, so an extension cord's close enough. And shoot, man, I tied this up. All right, so just like pretend that this, I just don't want like the keyboard to come like flying off the stage. I would just run away and get in my car, go home. I'd blame Jake. All right. So say this chord like just goes. This chord goes forever. Okay, like it goes off the stage, through Clifton Park, around the world, like just keeps going, right? It goes forever and ever and ever. Okay, so this represents, this rope right here, cord, whatever. This represents eternity, millions and millions, billions and billions, trillions and trillions of years, right? Eternity is this rope. It just keeps going and going, like the Energizer Bunny, like it just keeps going and going. This is eternity, okay? This is forever and ever and ever and ever. This represents our life on earth. This right here, right? Right here, this tape represents you and I, our lives on earth, whether you live to be 80 or 80 and a half. Right here, okay? This is your life here on earth. So what Jesus, like, when you read in the Bible, what Jesus talks about is he talks about, like, he tells us that we should view life thinking about this, about eternity, right? It's a different perspective. It's a different perspective, but he tells us that, like, this is what we should think about. Like, we should live our lives on earth thinking about like, forever. So, like, decisions that we make and, like, things that we prioritize and things that we love and things that we sacrifice and things that we chase and all that, like, it should be forever and ever, eternity. That's what we should be thinking about. We should be thinking about eternity. That was Jesus' point of view. That's called eternal perspective. Okay? But this is what we normally think about, right? We think about life right here on earth. We are stuck in the tape, if you will, right? We think about right here. So, like, when a boyfriend or girlfriend, like, breaks up with us, like we're like, it's right here. Our grades, like, is our life. We just think about right here, like our family situation and all that. We think about right here. And even though Peter says, like, you'll be here for a little while, we think we're going to be here forever while, you know? And we lose track of eternity, and our minds are just right here. We're stuck in the tape. We're stuck in the tape. Guys, I remember being a high school student and being stuck in the tape. I remember when I loved that girl so much, and like I knew I was gonna marry her, and even though we had only dated like not even 3 months, that's pretty whipped. And like when she broke up with me, like it devastated me. I was living in the tape. Like it was my whole life. My whole life. This was not a little while to me. This was everything. I didn't think about this. I didn't think about eternity. I thought about this. And when I walked into the gym one day after playing basketball my entire life, soon after that breakup, and the coach said, "Chad, you've been cut." Like, I didn't think about this. I wasn't thinking about eternity. I was thinking about this. I was stuck in the tape. And when I had my friends, my bros, squad up, right? Like, I had my dudes. And when one of them, like, quickly got involved with the girl who just dumped me and kind of, like, I felt, like, kind of betrayed, I didn't think about this. I wasn't thinking about how small the problem was compared to eternity. I was thinking about this. And here's the deal. Here's the thing, gang, about living within the tape. Here's the thing about thinking that this is everything. The problem is when it is going good here in life, when you got that girlfriend or boyfriend, when you got that spot on the sports team, when you're getting those grades, when things are going well, I am not going to try to argue with you. It's good. I'm not going to try to debate that. When things are good, they're good. Right? Like, when things in life here in the tape are good, they're good. But here's the problem. When things are bad, which we all just admitted that happens a lot, right? When things are bad, all you got is this. And it's so easy to become hopeless. And all your hope is to desire for something to happen and desire for these circumstances to get better. And you become hopeless. I heard today, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm not joking at all here. I'm not making a funny, so to speak. Today is like National Awareness of Suicide Day, right? Like, I see that correctly? Did anyone else see that on social media today? Is that, yeah? You can speak out. Am I right or wrong? You're like, no, bro, it's like next month. That's fine, whatever. It's today, right? Listen, I'm using a real example. You know why one of the reasons like that can become such a has become such a reality is because we can get so stuck with life right here in the tape, right? Where so when life is good, it's good, but when it's bad, we can become hopeless, right? But Jesus talks to us about an eternal perspective, and here's what eternal perspective means, okay? Eternal perspective means that you view your life here through the lens of here, okay? That's eternal perspective, that you think about your life here through the lens on earth, you think about your life here on earth through the lens of eternity. That's eternal perspective. So, depending on your perspective, following Jesus is worth it. You see, if you're here on earth, which you are, I think you're here on earth. Am I dreaming? Okay, but if we're all here on earth, right, which confirmed. So, what was I just saying? Oh, following Jesus is worth it. Okay, so if you're here on earth, right, and you're looking you're stuck in the tape, so to speak. You're stuck in the tape, right? And so you have that little while, but you don't think this is a little while. You think a little while is like forever while, and all you're thinking about is the tape. All you're thinking about is your life right here on earth. Well, following Jesus probably doesn't make sense to you. Following, like what makes sense to you, probably if you're living in the tape, is to party, is to go and like drink and have fun and like go for it in life, to do drugs, to popularity, to live for your friends. Again, I've been there. I know what that feels like. And that's life within the tape. And when things are good, they're good. I'm not going to lie to you. It is fun. When you're popular, man, it's fun. Like, when you get, like, when she does or he does say, like, I love you too, man, it's fun. When it's good, but when it's bad, and all your hope is tied up into this, following Jesus doesn't seem worth it. Because you think to yourself, like, well, why would I give up those things? Like, why not live for everything I got right here? Why not just live for myself right here? Why not just live for just fun and whatever sounds good to me right here? This is all I got. Well, it's not all you got. You got this. You got all of this. And when you're thinking about this, well, now, from an eternal perspective, following Jesus is worth it. Because you're thinking about, so someone might ask you, like, well, like, why don't you party? Why don't you go out with us? Why, listen, that group of friends is like inviting you to hang out, and you're hanging out with that group of friends, or why do you go to that weird thing on Sunday night called primetime? Aren't they a cult? Like, what's going on? Right? And you're like, no, it's just that I'm not living just for this. I'm living for this. I'm living for the promises that Jesus has given me. I'm living for what he's already done for me. I'm living for the fact that he's with me right now and that he's changing my heart. I'm living for the fact that in eternity, like when I die, I'm going to be with him forever. And so I'm investing in my relationship with him now because I'm thinking about eternity. But depending on your perspective, from an eternal perspective, following Jesus is worth it. From an eternal perspective, if you're stuck in the tape, it's not. So I guess like that's the question, is where's your mind? Even if you're a follower of Jesus, if you're a Christian, it's so easy to fall back into being stuck in the tape and just thinking about this. And if you're not a follower of Jesus, if this whole thing is new to you, maybe this is the first time you ever heard that kind of perspective tonight. And you're like, okay, you're right. Like, my hope is just tied up into things getting better in my life, and that's not really like sustainable. And I'm kind of interested in the promises of Jesus. So I would love to talk to you or any adult leader here tonight, but I do want you to know that you can begin your journey with Jesus. No, it's okay. I'm wrapping it up. All right, so you could begin your journey with Jesus tonight by just choosing to accept his promises and his offer to you. Okay? Hey, listen, I'm so glad that you are here. It is going to be an awesome year at Prime Time. I cannot wait. We have incredible things for you this year. And my prayer is that so many of us would gain this eternal perspective on our life, because that's going to change how you live and your family, at school, and what God can do through our ministry here. So thank you for coming out tonight, and let me pray, and then I will see you. I'd love to see you back next Sunday. Also, if you're new here tonight, please, I'd love to meet you before you leave. I'd love to meet you. All right? Let's pray.